All right, we are live for the midday Mike and Mario show, and as always, excited to be back. Looking forward to connecting, and basically just going through this week. Oh my goodness, I always have the issue of having too many tabs open. Give me a second here. Let me close some windows. Uh, Mario, fill in a blank for me, man.
Oh
Take
yeah,
care of this for me.
sorry about that, guys. So yeah, welcome to the Mike and Mario show, M&M show. We're starting a half an hour earlier today, but yeah, we're gonna look at what's been going on, not just the interview yesterday between Tucker Carlson and President Putin, but also what's going on in the banking sector, not just in the U.S. but in Europe now. People are talking about the fact that there's a lot of risk for banks. We're going to look. There's so many things happening. The farmers' protest in Europe. It seems to be spreading to Wales here in the UK. What else we're going to talk about? President Biden. He wasn't too happy yesterday,
Yeah,
but it looks like they're trying to throw him under the bus. So, Mike, are you back now?
I'm good.
So I'll let you fill in the blanks.
Always, for those who are plugged in, we appreciate your presence. And as always, the goal is to keep you plugged in on what's happening, give an alternative perspective, and of course, get some feedback from you guys, letting us know what you're keeping your eyes on and things of that nature. So, as we get going during this live stream, feel free to throw out some thoughts, ideas, suggestions in the chat, and make sure you have your questions ready for the Q&A portion. And if you have not already, for support of the channels, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and support Manigo64 as well as Rethinking the Dollar. And also, I've been reminding people on my side, Mario, to make sure you click that bell notification and then hit all notifications if you really want to be informed, because the algos these days are not the most friendliest. But anyway, so we got a lot of things to talk about. Before we do that, just to continue to remind people some opportunities that we have. And so I know you have something that you want to share with the viewers as well, which I definitely believe is a good opportunity for people. So I'll bring this up here. So real
Yes.
quick, give us a rundown, Mario, of the Dirty Man Safe.
Yeah, I was contacted by them last year, and I never thought about safes and stuff like that. I mean, I do have a safe at home, but this one's special because you can put a lot of stuff in it. It's well protected. You can dig it anywhere you want. And the reason why I looked into it, because I think last year there was a problem with one of the companies that kept safety box companies in the States. I mean, we've seen that here in the UK. Years ago, one of the major safety deposit boxes in London was broken into, and even the government got involved. So yeah, in this day and age, we're seeing people come through the borders, not just in the US illegally. Here in the UK, you never know how things are going to get. So yeah, if you looking to get a dirty man safe to keep your your stash or whatever is valuable safe, go check them out. And my promo code is Maneco10, and you get 10% off. And all the details are below in the description of all my videos.
Yeah, good deal, good deal, good deal. And always the reason we share these things, twofold. It gives you guys an opportunity to see what we're doing behind the scenes, as well as take precautionary measures to help diversify how you store your metals. And then also on my end, one thing I've been big on the last couple of about a year or so now is emergency food preparedness. And so, ForPatriots.com has been a blessing to my community as far as helping us just take advantage of the deals that they have for as far as food. So like literally, I don't know about you, Mario, but I have accumulated a nice stockpile of, as I call it, my calorie reserves, just in case things happen to hit the fan. And so ForPatriots.com has been a blessing to me, as I mentioned before. So if you guys are interested, I encourage you to go to ForPatriots.com/RTD and take a look at some of these deals they have on food and a variety of other of items. So just something worthwhile for those who might be interested. So you never know when stuff might hit the fan or as it's unfolding. So take a look if you guys are interested. ForPatriots.com/RTD. And so just a little opportunity out there for those who are interested. So I figure to kick this off, let's talk about the banking situation, which will continue to get worse based upon what we're witnessing now. We had a Moody's downgrade, and that's just one of many to come. And it looks like the contagion is spreading into the European area. And it all has to do with the commercial real estate issue that's unfolding. Now, before we went live, I mentioned about how the commercial real estate is a newer phenomena in comparison to what the previous banking situation was last March, because it was a treasury bond issuance issue or just been underwater. So that was the first domino. And it looks like the commercial real estate issues as well might be the second domino. And the BTFP was for the first problem. So now we got not a newer problem, but a potentially bigger problem that's unfolding right now. So how will the Fed respond to this? And will they let something go under before, or because I know they're not going to risk the entire banking system on commercial real estate. So what are some things you're thinking about? Then we'll get into some articles.
I think what the Fed and the Treasury are thinking is that it's containable, that, a few of these banks, some of them have a market cap, I don't know, of 20, 30 billion or less, that they are expendable, that they will collapse, that the big boys like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo will take over their deposits, and everything will be fine. I think that's playing with fire. And what you said about the crisis last year, it was to do with treasuries and the fact that treasuries had gone down a lot in price. Yeah. And a lot of banks had treasuries as reserves, as their assets, and their liabilities, though, and that went down a lot, so they couldn't cover their liabilities. And there was like a online digital run on them. And SVB collapsed, of course. But looking at U.S. Treasuries and Treasury yields, it looks like the respite we've had since, let's say, end of October to the beginning of this year, and that yields dropped and prices went up. It seems like that is over to me, because as I speak here, we're back up to like almost 4.2% in the 10-year yield. And at the end of the year, we're below 4. And so I think it could be not just a commercial real estate as another domino, but we could see the domino that was falling last year come back. They kind of stopped it from falling. So, yeah, and with BTFP ending on March 11th, which is about a month from now, I'm sure the Fed and the Treasury will find a way to patch things up. And that's why I think they're going to keep pumping the system. And that's why I think, Mike, the S&P is trading above 5,000, because investors, they smell fear, and they've become accustomed since 1987 to the Greenspan put. What's the Greenspan put? Well, every time something bad happens, the Fed comes to the rescue. They come and kiss everything well. It's like a little kid falls down, and the mom comes and picks the kid up and saying, "Don't worry, here's a sweet." And that's what the Fed does for the markets. and And that's why it looks really strange that we've got these banks underwater, like New York Community Bank Corp. And I think there's some other ones, Western Alliance. And at the same time, we got the stock market going to new highs.
Right. And so that's one thing, as I was trying to figure out how to approach today's discussion, is like, okay, nothing really makes sense. It never did. And so we have, the banking system, which is what holds everything together, showing signs of stress. And I'm going to show you an article in a minute where one of the commentators, analysts, is talking about insolvency. Like, it's becoming more obvious how insolvent the banks are. But then again, we got risk assets right now going through the roof. And so, as you mentioned, S&P 500, as I brought that up, I was going through this chart here, and I'm like, man, this boy just went parabolic ever since, we went onto this, easy debt credit system. And so I actually looked at the M2, and it also around the same time frame going out, zooming out, just running rampant. And then I looked at the purchasing power of the dollar. That boy just completely tanked. So as all that went up, everything else purchasing power went down. Therefore, overall cost of living for the average person who wasn't a part of these rallies, who didn't benefit directly from these rallies, got the short end of the stick. And I'm thinking like, wow, like this is setting up to be something interesting heading in the spring. And the reason I brought up the whole banking situation is that I'd be very surprised if this banking commercial real estate issue, which, as it said, Janet Yellen said that, it's of concern, but it's manageable. Like, once again, what does manageable mean? Meaning that they're going to have to come out and create or produce or try to patch things up before it gets out of hand, because this is a presidential year. They can't afford to let no leaks in the bubble unfold. But then again, so are we going to have like a continual risk asset melt up where, our stock market, going 5,000-6,000, S&P, and like they got to juice the markets. Like the only option at this current moment is to continue to juice the markets. And then again, the banks will still, have their issues. So it's like, wow. And of course, in the dead center of all that, gold and silver. They're not going to let nothing show signs of weakness there or strength there. So
Yeah.
Interesting times, man. But I want to show another little headline here, just showing more of what's happening. This is just not an isolated event. And so here's the headline I was talking about, the risk of bank defaults spreading to Europe, Man Group fund manager says. And just real quick, I want to read, there was something I was reading here. It says, in Germany and Scandinavia, we are seeing commercial real estate exposure as percent of tangible equity in the 400, 500, 600% range, Golden said in an interview. He said, if each of these banks takes a 15% write down for every dollar they lend to commercial real estate, which I'm not saying is a base case, but is completely reasonable scenario, not only are these banks not investable grade, they're insolvent. And so that's in Germany and Scandinavia. So that's just, so if the contagion spreads, it won't just be the U.S. So the European bank, ECB, gonna have to respond. And then right now we're witnessing China respond to their banking situation. So it's literally like the only thing I can see is just let the printer press go crazy to keep this thing afloat. And that's kind of spooky.
Yeah, and I'm sure that will probably happen here in the UK as well, just like, back in '08, the real estate crisis. And you mentioned Janet Yellen there, and I saw that she made another comment this week that inflation's fine, as long, if prices are rising, it doesn't matter, as long as wages are rising too, which I thought was quite weird. And yeah, things are getting quite strange.
Right. And so, inflation's not a problem as long as wages rise. But what about, the consumer price increases to our livelihood, grocery store, gas, all the amenities of life that we've enjoyed also will be going up as well. So it's like, she won't mention anything about that because the average person don't know.
And ironically, President Putin yesterday kind of helped the BLS and the U.S. government. He said, "Oh, your inflation is very contained; it's only 3-4%." He didn't say that it was a fabrication, because so I thought that was a good one. Janet Yellen, she's desperate to keep people in the market because she has a lot of debt to sell this year. I think something like 7 to 8 trillion. And as we know, Mike, a lot of countries like Russia, China, and all the other BRICS countries, they're moving away from the dollar by every second, and there's not going to be enough demand for it. And I think that's why yields are going to go back up, because investors have to be lured by higher yields. But that's going to really hurt the economy.
Yeah, and I saw like a little video clip of Yellen. I wish I would have grabbed it, but she was, it looks like before the Financial House Committee or something like that. And the question was put out there, how much, based upon the fiscal for this quarter, what do you guys anticipate needing to borrow? I think it was, she said something like, she stuttered a little bit, and then she said 760 billion.
Yeah,
761 billion. I'm like, huh? So that's that's what's projected as of now, what you need. But I'm like, what about all the other stuff? So the fact that she stuttered and stumbled and just
Well,
She threw that number out there. She threw that number out there with hesitancy.
I watched that too, and the guy, the congressman, or asked her, what's happening, to how are things going? How are you looking at things coming up in this quarter? And she said, "Oh, I have to come back to you on that," as if she wasn't prepared. I mean,
Right.
that's not very encouraging that the person who's running the treasury doesn't know what is going on. And she added that, "Oh, it's actually going to be less than we thought." It's like,
Yeah. Speaking of which, I just found it here. And so, just some commentators. It says Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the U.S. will borrow 760 billion in the first quarter, on pace for 3 trillion per year. Her current numbers are not even considering the impact of a recession. If so, the numbers will be even worse. And so,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe you can play it. No,
Let me see. I can give me 1 second. I have to. Yeah, I can play it. Give me a second. I have to play it from it with a different window so the audience can hear it. Let me. I gotta grab another one. 1 second here.
I just thought, the way she answered him was amazing. That she didn't know what was going on.
Fiscal inflows that you're
Oops.
or is it merely?
Nope, it won't work.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, I did play it on one end, and so this goes hand in hand because I don't think we mentioned. Did we mention Jerome Powell and his 60 Minutes situation on Sunday, saying that this current trajectory is unsustainable path. Like literally, we're reaching into the future, robbing future generations to
Yeah.
pay for the current environment today. So clearly, he acknowledges, and I think by him coming out first saying that it's unsustainable, he wanted to let it known. He wanted to let it be known first that he also sees that and agrees. Then Yellen came in talking about, oh, it's a problem. But then again,
Yeah.
we can go from there. Go ahead.
Thing is, the Fed and the Treasury, they're working together.
Mhm.
Jay Powell said, "Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about this, and it's the Congress's job to, pare back deficit spending and the debt." But the Fed is being obliging with QE since '08. They've gone from 800 billion in assets to almost 9 trillion recently, and that was all to help the Congress and the U.S. government, the Treasury, accumulate huge debts. So they're to blame too. So yeah, they're just playing good cop, bad cop, and stuff like that. And but yeah, he acknowledged the debt is growing a lot faster than the economy is growing. And I made a video earlier this week that it's going to be like a snake eating its own head. That's what's happening now, and eventually the economy will collapse. And I saw that yesterday. Paul Tudor Jones, a famous hedge fund manager, he said the same thing. We have a debt problem, and it's going to explode because we have too much deficit spending.
Yeah, and it doesn't help when during our interview yesterday with Tucker Carlson and Putin, he basically mentioned that we're on the U.S. is on a self destruction pathway anyway with the dollar because we've weaponized it. So basically, just be patient. Like you don't have to do anything. We're doing it ourselves. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's a good point.
Get your popcorn out and watch the how can I say, the demolition.
Yeah, and it's the thing, like, but no matter what, like, it's not gonna be pretty for me here in this country. It won't be pretty because you think
No.
about all the promises to pay that will be destroyed and lost,
Yeah.
and what you got the pension funds, social security, all the entitlement spending. So like, it won't be nothing. I won't be eating.
No, it's not just in the US. Here in the
Yeah,
UK, the same thing is happening. They're talking about increasing the pension age. And why is that? Well, because the pound, the euro, all these currencies are like mini me's of the dollar, and we are derivatives of the dollar, dating back to the Bretton Woods system. So it's not just America that's going to suffer. I think it's going to be even worse here.
yeah,
And that's why I've got my dirty man safe, and I've got my stack, well and safe, because yeah, and that's the other thing. If you can keep those, gold and silver through the crisis that's coming, and you can keep it to the other end of the crisis, that when the dust settles, I think you'll be in good shape. And like you as well, Mike, people who prep, who have enough food and water and whatever, yeah, they'll be okay as well. I mean, I'm not really big into prepping, but I do live near the countryside. So hopefully I'll be able to source, if necessary, stuff from farmers. And talking about farmers, maybe you want to move into the farmers protests in Europe. Seems to be getting quite quite interesting, and it's spreading.
Yeah, you sent that video. What was it? Let me see. Was it? Let me see. The Welsh Farmer Rebellion.
Yeah,
And so
they're
I didn't get.
starting in Wales too. It's just Wales is part of the UK, so we don't have any farmer protests in England, but in Wales it's starting.
Yeah. So I was. I think I was this. There's an uprising right now. I saw something in Spain. Um, there. Let me see. Was it not a Spain? So let me pull this up
They're
here.
using aren't they using also rubber bullets in Spain? And I mean, it's pretty
So we got
interesting.
we got a farmers protest in Portugal right now. This is just posted from concerned citizens, and so you see backed up, expressways, people alongside the road, and it says add Portugal to the list of growing countries revolting against the EU and their climate communism agenda. And then we got all types of just footage here. Spanish police block farmers protests.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
that video I sent you, that guy was talking about the Welsh government. They have like an
mhm,
autonomous government. They want to take 20% of every farmer's land, 10%, I think, to keep it wild, not grow anything, and another 10% just to grow trees. I think this agenda is nefarious, and I'm
yeah,
glad the farmers are rising up, because what they want to destroy agriculture, the small farmer in Europe, and then
yeah,
bring in the big corporations like Bill Gates corporations, and grow all these frankenfoods. You know,
yeah.
and,
Genetically modified.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we know Bill Gates has bought uh, a lot of acreage in the U.S. in the last
Oh
few
my goodness.
years, and you kind of wonder why.
Yeah, I think outside of federal lands here in our country, I think Bill Gates and his cohort of colleagues in the billionaire status are the largest landowners, and then the second is some Chinese investors in our country, and so that in of itself is a threat to our health, national security, financial security, well-being, and everything else. So it's very very disturbing. But then again,
Yeah.
like people don't talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about it.
Have you heard about the? I think his name is Miller. He's like an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania or somewhere in the East Coast.
Uh-huh.
He's got this business. He sells everything online. Really good organic meats, cheese, and he's been kind of criminalized by the Pennsylvania, I think, state government. So they're even trying to stop small farmers
Yeah.
from selling their produce, and I think it hasn't come to that here in England or the UK, but they're doing it another way, and that's why these farmers in France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Ireland, they're all protesting because they're imposing these Agenda 2030 climate net zero thing that says that farming is bad.
Right.
I think their goal is that they have the world population because according to them, we're useless eaters.
Right, and that's where everything that has been a part of our way of life is a threat to their net zero policy to accomplish. So that goes to that Agenda 2030, where by 2030 the goal is to have met their standards for eliminating everything that the free world enjoys, so that they could control everything.
Yeah.
And then earlier I watched a video about I'm not sure, I don't think I sent it to you, but it was Klaus Schwab being interviewed, and he was talking about the shift. The guy asked him about the shift, about out of capitalism into stakeholder capitalism, into shareholder capitalism, and being basically led by more of the private sector than actual government. So I'm like,
Yes,
that's not an evil plan. It's right in front of our face. I don't know what is.
stakeholder capitalism is a euphemism for fascism. And I think, though, there is some hope because the Labour Party here in the UK, they're supposed to win the general election this year. And they had a policy that, a green agenda policy. They're going to spend £28 billion a year to move this green agenda forward. But now they have had to come out and say that they're dropping this £28 billion spending. So is it because they can see that the public are waking up to this climate change religion, or is it also partly because we're seeing interest rates starting to go up, and the markets are saying if you spend another 28 billion on top of what the governments are spending already, interest rates are going to go up, and I think it's a bit of both, which is encouraging. And we've also seen what's happened to King Charles III. He's been diagnosed with cancer. There's a lot of speculation that he pushed too much, the green agenda, and that people are not happy with that. So they're using that as a cover to bring in someone else, i.e., his son. Who knows? But.
That goes right in hand with Biden. And over here, how I'm looking at the chain of events. So we had Tucker Carlson and Putin. We'll get into that more in depth. And then at the same time, the information about Biden's, record-keeping days when he was vice president surfaces, and his people threw him out in the public at 7:45 p.m. on the same night as the world was supposed to be tuning in to watch some type of, earth-shattering conversation between the world's greatest enemy and a U.S. journalist going rogue type of narrative. And he just stumbled, fumbled, bumbled his words. Mexico's bordering to Gaza now. It's like, so all of that said, literally, it's an agenda to distract us as well as to probably get ready to throw him under the bus completely in expectation for a new potential candidate. Because there's no talk about any of the DNC activity, no debates, no elections, it's nothing, because everything's been focused on the GOP with Nikki Haley losing in Nevada to none of the above. So it's just political theater, but it's entertaining. But
did his press conference come out during the Tucker interview?
So I saw the Tucker interview. I went over to tuckercarlson.com and watched it at 6. I put on 2 and just do as fast as I can. His came out at 7:45 p.m. and I wasn't even aware of it. Literally, I checked Twitter. They announced, breaking news, emergency live event tonight. Biden answering some questions. I'm like, Biden ain't been in front of the media answering legitimate questions in 2-3 years now. It's his whole presidency. They've been hiding them. Now they're gonna throw them out there in the public and let people have it. Let them take it to them. Now listen, one of the questions, about is his mental health good? He was like, my mental health, it must be good because I'm letting you talk, or something. It's like,
yeah, your memory. Man? No, he said, is your memory okay? And he said, of course it is. I'm letting you ask me a question. What's that got to do with memory? So, but yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, that's what's going on. And in terms of the that interview, what I would say is, if you haven't watched it, you should watch the whole thing. And because I think the mainstream media is going to try to spin it. And if you don't really watch it, you won't know. You have to make up your own mind about, what you think about Putin.
So I said, here's an article you sent me with the headline. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, how in the world you get this out of that? But Vladimir Putin's stunt was like interviewing Hitler without asking about the concentration camps. It confirmed the Russian president is mad, bad, and dangerous. I was like he seemed to be, and like, I'm not a fan, not, pro this, whatever. I'm just I'm not a spectator because it's all about they're all doing this to humanity. But from the outside looking in, a non-biased viewpoint, he gave me a history lesson on. He gave us all a history lesson
Oh
on
yeah,
Russia that
yeah.
was very profound. I'm glued in like whoa, like assuming it's true because he gave Tucker some documentation from the
Mm,
archives to verify
yeah.
signatures of. So I'm like,
The,
okay. So he clearly had a strategic advantage in trying to paint that picture, and then mentioning that we would have had peace by now if it wasn't for Boris. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought share your thoughts on that, but he laid out a good case of overall nothingness, but it's real subtle in the fact that he's not the bad guy that the West makes him out to be. So he literally wants to do the best for his people, yada, yada, yada. And their economy is doing quite well. He made it clear that the yuan is being in use heavily amongst his country and other countries, and the dollar less. So I'm like,
yeah.
okay, he just said everything we know, but yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting. But I guess in hindsight, it was somewhat entertaining.
Mm. So yeah, about Boris, I had heard about that he'd gone to Kiev in 2020. I think it was around April to tell Zelensky not to go ahead and get a peace deal with Russia. And of course, Boris Johnson has denied it. He said he went there just to like maybe talk to him about it, but he didn't tell him what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Putin yesterday said, yeah, the Ukrainians even provisionally signed the papers, and we did as well. He said we withdrew our troops from near Kiev,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden they reneged on it, and and we'd taken the troops out. It wasn't in good faith. But Boris Johnson today, he's denying it again. He's saying that it's propaganda. But we know that Boris Johnson is not very. He's a bit economical with the truth. As for the other things that Putin said, the history lesson was really interesting. It went on
Mm-hmm.
for a while, but sometimes you have to go back in history to see why things are happening now. One thing that wasn't new to me was that this conflict between Kiev and the eastern provinces in Ukraine, that didn't start in 2022. It started in 2014 when the CIA fomented a coup d'état
Yeah.
in Ukraine, and the Ukraine in the Ukrainian government and the Russian ethnics in eastern Ukraine, they've been basically in the civil war since 2014. And while most people in the West think that Russia invaded the Ukraine, Putin said, no, we went there because they were going to attack the eastern provinces again, they being Kiev. So, but of course, in the West, they will ignore that and say that Putin attacked. Uh,
Right.
I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling you that, there's always two sides
Right.
for things.
And one thing that's starting to become more apparent is the fact that, a lot of three-letter agencies in the West have been the provocateurs to a lot of events around the world, i.e. the CIA, as Putin mentioned, even potentially calling out Carlson. He was like, well, you like what he said, wanted to be one of them. Good thing they didn't let you in. And a lot of things went off in my mind because when I was ranting about the potential interview, people were saying, Mike, don't fall for it. Carlson's a CIA agent. He's really like that. I'm like, well, I don't know. But then looks like Putin did his homework and found out that Carlson did apply for the CIA. And I'm thinking like, okay, just, like put
I
my
think,
tinfoil hat on. Go
yeah,
ahead.
Tucker Carlson's father apparently was CIA, but I've got someone here, if you don't mind, William, saying, please be sure to inform your American viewers to 28% capital gains tax on bullion sales. So, yeah, I mean, here in the UK, there is no capital gains tax if you have coins of the realm, like sovereigns and Britannias. I'm not too familiar with the US tax situation, but yeah, I think there's a capital gains tax on gold in the US. Do you know
Yeah.
about that, Mike? But only if
Yes.
you make
So,
a profit on it, right? If you buy it for 2,000 and you sell it for 2,000, I mean, if you
Correct.
don't,
So there is somewhat of a movement taking place within our country where I don't know the full list of states that have was it no they've removed capital gains taxes or state taxes. They've removed taxes off of the sale of bullion within the state. Now at the federal level, I don't know, but state taxes wise, there's a good chunk of states now that are
oh yeah,
spreading
definitely.
that have
Well,
taken away the taxes. So that's where state, federal. I don't know how they're gonna mix that up,
yeah,
but I'm thinking go ahead.
the thing is, I mean, here in the UK, physical gold and silver are not considered financial investment, and they don't incur, coins of the realm don't incur capital gains. What you need to do in the US is check with your accountant or whoever, because
Mhm.
I'm not a tax expert. But
Yeah.
even if there is, and I think there might be capital gains tax on profits on gold, you're going to have capital gains tax on everything.
Right.
So,
And at that point, if they really look to press for people to report and things of that nature, the world obviously going to be in a very different place to where they're that desperate to where they're going to find a way to make sure that they get their cut of that because they don't want anybody profiting off of this transition. And then also a good way of kind of getting a little bit of a taste of what could come from precious metals would be with what's being put out there. I sent you that screenshot of what they're trying to do in the crypto space in the UK. And I saw
oh
someone
yeah,
post that the UK is usually the test bed for regulation that comes to the USA. And so this was just put out there by Bitcoin News. It says UK regulators have started sending out emails asking for up-to-date information about the activity of self-custody wallets. So to me, self-custody wallets will fall in line with the person having something in their own possession outside of the system's control and them wanting to keep tabs on it. So they're asking for addresses in crypto space. Please update your crypto address so we can make sure that this is your address, yada yada yada. If you
yeah,
want to get in and out of the system there. So just put that in gold perspective. Like, God forbid, like they contact bullion dealers down the line and say, can you please confirm the address of people who bought using credit card ABC? So same type of thing can play out, during desperate times. Governments get desperate. They try to be creative, even though they're
yeah.
not.
One thing I would say about the capital gains tax, and this is not, I'm not telling you to do that, but what I would do, if possible, instead of selling gold or silver for fiat, I would try to get to know more people and people who are interested in gold and silver, or who might want to exchange, gold for something else. Like I've done a video with a guy from Arkansas. He's got a beef, a
Yeah,
farm
I know
there.
Arkansas. I follow them.
Yeah, and he's had people go there after they watched my interview with him, and basically buy beef for an ounce of gold. So
Mhm.
that way, it doesn't go through the books. But I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not
Right.
trying to avoid taxes. I'm just saying uh, that might be interesting.
Yeah. And then also, U.S. coinage in of itself, like nickels, dimes, and things of that nature, will also they're appreciating value as the silver content price goes up. So once again, like a quarter, like taking a quarter, whatever a quarter might be worth at that particular time, like taxation wise, like you have just it says 1 quarter. So you take that quarter in USD terms, even though it's probably
Yeah,
$50 in Federal Reserve note terms, and you do business with that, like how can you tax that? So
yeah,
yeah, but yeah, it's just something to think about. So whenever there's a will, there's a way. Let's get to some Q&A. Let's get to some Q&A. As always, feel free to throw out thoughts, ideas, suggestions in the chat. Highlight at Rethinking a Dollar or Manico64 so people can sort of stand out, and we will try to get your questions. But let me know if you see anything while I
yeah.
try
I'm
to.
looking here. Haven't seen anything yet. I'm just waiting.
Let me bring this up here. And then also for those who, if you have any brave souls out there that might want to join us quickly and share a thought, idea, suggestion via the face to face, feel free to do that as I prepare the link here.
Oh, the other thing I saw today in the Babylon Bee on Twitter or X, they said man ruled too senile to stand trial, still fine to run the country. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, so it's like literally by them throwing Biden under the bus, allowing him his.
Rod says he wants TNA, not Q&A. What's TNA?
I don't know.
Dan Z is asking, hi, Mike and Mario, any live stream callers? Yeah. Are you putting that link up for?
I can put the link up for the face to face, and we can do the phone line as well if you guys wanted to, but
yeah,
I can supply a number as well if you guys want to do that. But easiest thing is face to face, or just throw out the question or thought in the chat.
Ryan Morosi, did Putin mention gold? No, he didn't mention. He did not mention gold. He spoke more about the dollar. That, like Mike said earlier, that America is shooting itself in the foot. And he did say, though, that prior to 2022, Russia used 80%, of their international trade was done with dollars and euros, and now it's almost zero. And he said we weren't planning that.
Right.
It was all the sanctions and everything.
Thoughts about President Harris?
Kamala.
I'm assuming that's Kamala.
Kamala. Well, I think there's a better chance of having Michelle Obama as president. That there's a lot of rumors about that she's going to come on a white horse and save the United States.
Yeah. We have someone. We got somebody joining us. Let me get them in here if I can.
Michelle Obama rides side saddle, or no? I don't think she does.
We got Mr. Dennis joining us in the middle. Dennis, how you doing, my friend?
Yeah, hi guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's going on with you?
Well, I'm at my ranch here in Mexico and enjoying your guys' shows I do every Friday. And I had a few questions that I just jotted down from the topics today. Okay. Mario had mentioned bond yields need to rise. Is that to attract the buyers of debt? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, to follow up on that question, have either of you been watching the FMOC bid to cover ratios? And then I have one final question, guys.
Yeah, bid to cover ratio, that's how, when the U.S. Treasury has an auction of bonds or treasuries, let's say they sell 10 billion, and if there's 20 billion of bids for those 10 billions, the bid to cover is 2-1. It's still okay, the bid to cover, but that's something really important to keep an eye on, because they have auctions every week, and if that starts dropping towards, let's say, 1, that means that there's very little demand for treasuries, and that could lead to people selling bonds and yields going further. So yeah, it's the treasury bid to cover ratio.
Good question, Dennis. What else is on your mind, man?
Okay, I've asked this question to several people in our circles: Bill Holter, Lynette Zhang, Mike Maloney, many others. And I'd like to ask Mario this question. Anyway, here we go. Do all stocks and bonds, ETFs, paper-denominated assets go to near zero in terms of purchasing power when the currency hyperinflates?
I think the financial assets will go to zero, but assets of companies like oil companies, gold miners, anything that's real, they won't go to zero. Back in 1923 in Germany, There were a lot of companies that did well. The industrial companies. It's more the insurance companies, the life insurance, the fund managers, bond funds, people like that, and banks. They will be in trouble.
Okay.
Dennis, good one.
Yeah.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Yeah, all denominated in currency, which would have zero in purchasing power. So how could they have value?
Well, they would have value in that, if the currency collapsed, you still have the certificates, and then when the new currency is instituted, those things would still be valuable. But other assets that were, related to bonds and financial assets, they would just like not come back.
Okay, so the bond market is 3 times the size of the stock market. The bonds would go to zero in terms of purchasing power.
Oh yeah, U.S. Treasuries would go to zero because the dollar would be worthless.
Okay. Any comment, Mike?
No, I mean, no. You've stumped me with that one a couple of times. So we've been down that pathway before. So I guess the moral of that story is, if it's not tangible and real in your hands, everything else is subject to the volatility or the woes of the currency, which basically is going to its intrinsic value of.
But yeah, I would much rather have physical assets outside the system in a hyperinflation. I wouldn't want even to have stocks of companies that have commodities as a business, because now there's talk about this great taking, and they could take everything, especially when there's a hyperinflation.
Yeah. So and for laughing giggles, let's add Mr. LBP to the mix.
My Mexican brother.
Oh my God! I just became Mexican. No.
So low blood pressure, just got his Mexican passport, and then Dennis, he built a compound down in Mexico. So all the RT community going to Mexico.
Yeah.
Let me ask him. Hey, Dennis, have you worked on your passport?
Well, I'll be a Mexican citizen in about 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I'm a temporary Mexican citizen, I guess now is what they call it. I have an identification card.
You got the permanent resident right now.
Yes, my wife says yes, so my wife and I both do.
Okay.
That's their.
So you're gonna naturalize.
Their plan B.
You see,
that was Dennis's plan A or B. Either one, and
Dennis,
that's low blood pressure's plan B.
Dennis reminds me of Shawshank,
Shawshank
Redemption. When they went down to Mexico, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the beach. LBP, what's on your mind, man?
That place, I think is. I'm not sure where he went. Oh, I was gonna say, you know how they're gonna tokenize everything, and your house will be tokenized, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's their goal. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think it's gonna work. I think all that's gonna be like the assignat. You know how the church properties were supposed to represent that assignat. I don't even know how to spell that, but remember, all that's supposed to represent that money.
Yeah, and they, after the assignats collapsed, they tried the mandats, and that didn't even get off the ground. So I don't think CBDC is going to work.
Yeah, I don't think you could tokenize something like that, because you cannot divide a house. You know how? Okay, you have a problem with people. How are you gonna, how are you gonna divide the between the people? How's a judge gonna say, okay, we have to sell this house and split everybody's little piece, each person's token? It doesn't even make sense to me.
Then not to promote or encourage, but literally all this blockchain stuff is a test subject matter for them to do all that. Like literally, that's the whole point of the digital ID system. Like you're gonna have to log in and be certified to log in, and all that verification process stuff. That's a part of what they want to, include in this digitization and tokenization of the world stuff. So blockchain is not by mistake. This whole blockchain revolution that the world's being forced to be a part of, it's for their system at the end of the day. Like, we're the test subjects through all this decentralized stuff that they're throwing our way. So I think they call themselves thinking this through, but we'll see. Anything else, fellas? Go ahead.
So the government has to finance $6 to $8 trillion in debt, and I watched an interview, and the man said at the FMOC meeting in August that 40% of the bonds did not have a bidder. And isn't that percentage going to increase? Because Jim Rickard says that if you're over 50% with no bid, that the currency starts to get shaky. Wouldn't that percentage grow exponentially with the debt that needs to be refinanced?
Well, I think what we're talking about here is the interest on the debt. And I think the interest on the debt is getting to a point where it's almost equaling tax receipts. So if it gets above tax receipts, that's like historically it's known to really take a country into bankruptcy. So yeah, I think we need to watch that, and that's why Dennis, bond yields are so important, because if they spike, let's say to like 5-6% in the 10-year in the next few months, you could see the cost of interest payments for the government go higher. It could, yeah, it could be really, yeah, disastrous. And then the Fed would probably have to step in and do more QE to buy the bonds, but that would really hammer the dollar in terms of purchasing power.
Yeah. And speaking of which, the reason I paused a couple of people because we're getting feedback from the mics. But gentlemen, I appreciate you, man, for joining us and asking those questions. And so Mr. Dennis got his nice little background there in Mexico.
Yes, I paint my buildings in the color of money, Mike. This one's gold.
Uh-huh.
And then I have some silver, and then orange, which is education from my college that I graduated from.
Hey, appreciate you, man. So this guy, we're gonna do a retreat down there, man. I'm still waiting on the website so we can all meet up down there.
I'm working on it. I'm working on things every day. But thank you.
All
I
right,
enjoyed
man.
this, guys.
Appreciate you, man. All right, LB.
All right, guys. One last question. I'll get off. What's the next event?
The next event, we got the banking situation coming up. We got what else we got coming up? What else, Mario? Anything else? What event? Uh-oh.
Well, next event, I'm not sure. I mean, FOMC in about 5 weeks, or maybe does he mean event in terms of like a crisis? Who knows? Where's Mike?
No, I got rid of myself. Got rid of myself by mistake. I apologize. But yeah, I think more so in crisis, and so like literally, the banks, or I think it'll be some type of false flag event. Like, just as a side note here, there's a lot of speculation about this weekend, Super Bowl weekend, Las Vegas, large gathering, large crowds, just stuff that people float out there. But then again, when things get tough and governments get desperate, stuff happens. So between now and November, definitely there's going to be something. I don't know what. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, take advantage of all the opportunities that are in front of you, because with gold and silver right now is still being on the fire sale compared to all these risk assets that's off to the races, and the potential threat of the banking contagion. Like, positioning yourself in a strategic fashion is still important. So that's just my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that are challenging the narrative or the establishment right now. Like in Europe, we have the farmers' protests. We've had this interview between Putin and Tucker Carlson, and I think that's divided the public even more, in the US and even in the UK. I was reading through comments on stories in the mainstream, And there's a lot of division. Some people are saying, you know, Putin, he's a murderous despot. Some people are saying our establishment, they lie about everything. You know, it's so, you know, everything is coming to the boiling point. And you've got, apart from that, you got what's happening politically in the US with the election and what they're doing with vis-a-vis Trump. And also Biden, is he going to be running? Who's going to run? I mean, there's just so much out there.
Yeah, somebody said, you know, we got threat of martial law, war, and of course we got every day the tech sector is laying off, you know.
Yeah, or we could
5%,
have
6%.
or we could have this X disease that they're talking about.
Cyber event, you know, they've put out enough hints and clues as to what they are working towards.
Or Taiwan, you know, who knows?
Right. So anyway, in the meantime, man, just it's February 9th. Be thankful and blessed with what you have. Enjoy life, man. And yeah, get ready for an interesting spring, summer. That's all. You just, you know, if you prepare for something, you never be caught off guard. Well, anyway, people, we're approaching the hour point. Mario, is always good to connect. Great back and forth, everybody. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed today's live stream. And it's great to be able to connect with some members of the community and, you know, just be reminded of what it looked like to have good weather and palm trees down in Mexico. But well, be blessed, everybody. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you guys next week, Lord willing.